Thanks for downloading this edition of The Why Factor from the BBC, a programme that seeks to find out why we do the things we do. I hope you enjoy it. BBC World Service, I'm Mike Williams with The Why Factor. Today I've come to face one of my fears. Over my career I've been shot at and bombed and arrested and beaten up, so I have some issues with humans, but in this building here is something that really scares me. Not looking forward to it. Oh, good grief. It's very, very hot and humid in here. I'm surrounded by butterflies. The butterflies are okay. But further to the back, the thing I really dislike. Oh, good grief. Look at the size of that thing. Moths. Oh. Today, fear. Fear of animals in particular. It's obvious why we might fear a great white shark or a tiger, but moths? It's absurd, isn't it?
I feel that it is disgusting. That's the first feeling about it. It is ugly and disgusting.
Is it difficult for you to talk about it?
Actually, it is a lot, yes, but it is only for you that I'm trying to do that.
This is Anna Stratodaiki, who lives in Athens.
I know that if I am very anxious about things, then they come in my nightmares. I am afraid of the animal, and at the same time, I put all my fears on the animal. I'm afraid of them since I was, 5, 6, 7 years old, around there. As silly as it sounds, I don't know why. I'm afraid of tortoises.
Tortoises?
Yes.
Να μιλήσω.
Τι κάνεις, ξύπνησες?
My dad used to record us when we were kids. And when I was about 2 years old, there is a tape. He's talking to both my brother and me, saying, would you like to go for a walk on the mountains? And then he says, if we find any tortoises, would you like to collect them and bring them home? And how many would you like to collect? And I said,
2 χελώνες.
2.
Και τι θα τις κάνεις?
Μία σπίτι και μία στο σχολείο.
And this was really astonishing for me, because if you told me today to do the same thing, I would jump from the window.
Anna doesn't know exactly when she went from being a tortoise lover to a hater, but she does remember the first time she was frightened by one. She was 7 years old and back in the mountains, this time with friends.
And suddenly, as I was stepping on the rock, there was a tortoise under my feet, and I started shouting, jumping on from the rock to the other just to get away. And the guys were all around me. I said, look around, there is a snake 2 rocks behind. So then everybody got panicked.
So they're all panicking over the snake and you're still panicking over the tortoise?
Yes, and we left, this time we left the mountain for good.
One of the things that I think about when I think about the animals that I kind of dislike is the way they move. Does that bother you?
Yes, oh God, it is horrible for me. I cannot stand it. It is the way that they disappear and they appear again. This movement, when they get afraid, that they fold in their own shell. This is even worse. Now I get goosebumps. I find it very appalling.
Can you describe this fear?
Have you seen the film of George Orwell, the 1984?
It goes beyond fear of pain or of death. It is unendurable.
The guy that had a cage in front of him, in front of his eyes, full of rats.
They show astonishing intelligence in knowing when a human being is helpless.
So imagine me at the same time with a tortoise in front of my eyes. It's a small kind of prison for me.
What do you want?
Phobias are generally illogical fears of something, irrational fear of something which is generally harmless.
Dr. Dean Burnett is a neuroscientist at Cardiff University in the UK, and he's the author of a book called The Idiot Brain. The moment when you see a shape of a moth or a spider or a snake or whatever it is, when you get that trigger, What happens?
The sensory information is just relayed directly into your brain via like the thalamus, which is like the central hub of the brain. And anything which prior experience recognises as potentially dangerous, something which you've had a bad experience with, one part of it's rooted into the cortex, where it's sort of thought about. That's that thing. I know that from the last time I experienced this. And you can rationalise your way through it. But it also sends a message directly to the amygdala, which immediately triggers the fight or flight response. Bang, fire alarm, off it goes, flood the body just in case. Think of it as like just a better safe than sorry response. It's a survival mechanism.
So this part of the brain, the amygdala, just rings the fire alarm at the first smell of smoke. It doesn't go investigate. It doesn't check there is actually a fire.
Yes, essentially, yes. This is a very powerful reaction. All the stress hormones are flooded through the body and they circulate for something like half an hour or something. So we can't just turn it off once we realise, oh, it's okay, it's just a harmless thing. And that's why something like a phobia is so potent, because you still experience all the biological reactions you would to something which is genuinely dangerous.
I'm just surrounded by these flying creatures.
And actually, there is one above your head.
I know, I saw it. I'm a bit scared that it might drop down.
Sometimes with a club at the end.
Mark Tansey is one of the keepers here at London Zoo, in charge of the butterflies, lovely, and the moths, not so much. Oh,
sitting over there.
Dear me, look at the size of it. Particularly this one, the Atlas Moth, comes from Southeast Asia, and it's huge, the largest moth in the world, 20 or 30 centimetres across, fat bodies the size of my thumb, brown and a dull orange, and with a strange, almost furry texture.
The abdomen.
Yeah.
The thicker legs.
Yeah, OK, stop talking. You very rarely say that to an interviewee. Really? Enough's enough. I'm trying to work out what disturbs me so much about moths, and I think it's the movement. Yeah. It's that kind of slightly erratic movement.
Definitely. Well, I mean, a lot of people are saying butterflies are like the good, moths are the evil. Mainly because butterflies should fly in the daytime, even though there are many day-flying moths, and moths at night. So that's where the light and the dark come in, you see.
I remember as a child sitting in a room with a big glass door, and the moths just flinging themselves at it over and over again, and felt when I was a kid like they were trying to batter the door down. They were heading for the light and kept on fluttering up against the window.
That's because they navigate by the moon, you see, and they can't reach the moon, but they can basically get to a light.
I feel like I'm doing a disservice because that moth is, it's quite spectacular, but it's okay while it's lying there quietly, clinging onto the cocoon. But that thing up and flying about, I wouldn't want to be in here.
And on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is mild and 10 is extreme, where would you put your fear of spiders? That's fine. Great. We'll expect that to be a lot less by the end of the evening. OK, John will give you a name badge.
Elsewhere in the zoo, there's a group of about 40 people gathered in one of the meeting rooms. This is the Friendly Spider programme, an afternoon where arachnophobes are helped to face their fear. There's a hypnotherapist on hand and an expert on spiders.
Our full expectation is that you're going to be over your fear of spiders by the end of the evening.
Brilliant, that's great. So when I see a spider, I feel like I've been punched in the chest.
Complete fear. It's absolutely paralysing. They've never been okay with me. I've always hated them.
I spent a lot of time driving around in the car afraid to go home while my husband worked in London.
All rationality goes out the window and my emotions completely take over.
I just run.
My name's Stephen and I'm here to cure my spider phobia.
I'm Rena. I am here to help me function as a human being in life.
Okay, right. So let's hear it. What is it about spiders that triggers that response?
Everything. When I moved house when I was 10, there were spiders everywhere. And I remember opening the cupboard in my bedroom and it was like there was a mass spider suicide. It was horrendous. They were all there on their backs, legs akimbo. I just remember that really vividly. I have that image in my head. And since then, if I ever have a spider incident, it's etched in my memory. Like it's every spider that I've ever encountered since. They're burned into my retinas.
We have a strong tendency to recall and store memories a lot better if they have a strong emotional component. The intense fear experience makes the memory far more vivid. If you're afraid of something, if you've got a phobia, every experience you have, or every encounter with that thing that you're afraid of, will be very emotionally salient, very emotionally intense. So every time you encounter something which upsets you, which makes you afraid, then you've got very little chance of not remembering that, because that's how the brain works. It considers that memory important because you encountered something bad. It compels you to relive it more and more because it's so strong a memory and so connected to the rest of your brain and all the different thought areas that you can't really get away from it. So you keep thinking of the experience and you keep experiencing the negative consequences of it again and again. And as a result, it's very hard to forget these things. It's really hard to lose that association.
So we're just about to go over to the bug place where the spiders are.
The hypnotherapist calms them down and tries to reassure the crowd that they're not actually scared of spiders.
I hope I can go in, but I can't even look at a picture of a spider on TV or in a magazine. I can't look at it without having a heart attack.
And then as you come further into the room here, you'll see other spider exhibits.
Then comes the process of desensitization.
We are starting to look at some real spiders, including one in a bath. And, it's horrifying.
Our perceptual awareness, it's not truly objective. So it actually can be sort of attuned or biased in many, many different ways towards the things that were of evolutionary relevance to us, while letting many other things sort of pass by without our awareness at all.
Joshua New is a cognitive and evolutionary psychologist at Barnard College in New York City.
The title of my paper is Spiders at the Cocktail Party, an Ancestral Threat That Surmounts Unintentional Blindness. We were interested in just the general idea that some particular items, like snakes and spiders, are of critical importance for evolutionary survival. And if that's the case, then we might have visual systems that are built in to help you identify them or detect them in the environment.
To test his theory, Joshua ran 2 experiments with almost 600 participants.
You put people in a situation where they have no expectation of encountering a spider or a spider-like stimuli.
Instead, they were told to look at a computer screen and were asked to judge which of 2 lines was longest when the image briefly flashed up.
And you actually give that a number of times until they sort of get trained into the routine of it. And then one very critical trial, you throw in that unexpected stimulus. And that's for 200 milliseconds or 1/5 of a second at the periphery of the display.
They used several different images.
So in both the experiments, we included our best attempt at a prototypical spider.
Just a black dot with 8 curving legs. And there were other variants. A scrambled spider, one made up of straight lines, and a more modern item associated with fear and pain.
Hypodermic needles are quite ubiquitous and everybody has experiences with them. And in some cases, they've been reported to be as fearful as spiders. So that seemed like a good modern threat to control with what we considered an ancestral threat.
Lastly, they included the humble housefly. All of these stimuli would appear once, briefly and unexpectedly during the test. And at the end, people were asked what they'd seen.
Spiders, the prototypical iconic-looking cases, and the rectilinear spiders, and a few other cases that we felt fell within the spider template. Almost half the time, people detected them, identified them, and could even locate them on the screen. That household flies did not capture attention in nearly the same fashion, and hypodermic needles also failed to capture attention nearly as well.
63% of the subjects identified the spiders, compared to just 10% for the housefly and 8% for the hypodermic needle.
You think that nearly every individual has had at least one or a few painful encounters with a hypodermic needle, just by virtue of medications or inoculations. By comparison, you think very few people have actually had a real-life aversive experience being bit by a spider, but more than half of the individuals have this sort of reflexive awareness of them. You can see that as an evolutionary sort of leftover.
And this reflective awareness, this sensitivity to the shape of a spider, is an ancient thing which evolved while our ancestors roamed the African savanna.
Even just a bite from a spider could be incapacitating for days or weeks, which would make them susceptible to other threats in the evolutionary environment. And you would pose considerable burden on all of your family and friends who would have to take care of you for that time. So avoiding a bite would actually be extremely well advised. And any ability to simply avoid a bite would be very valuable.
Are you okay? You all right?
She's very brave.
Yeah.
She's absolutely fine. She's incredibly
Well done.
brave.
Well done. I think I've made a little bit of progress. One of the guys did show me a book of pictures of all the different spider breeds, and I actually managed to look at all those pictures and touch them, which I wouldn't have been able to do this morning. I feel like maybe I'm on a first step towards getting better. I hope so. Just wish it was easier.
I know.
God damn it.
I'm a rational being. Why can I not rationalise away this dislike of moths? Why is willpower not enough?
Yeah, that's the real kicker when it comes to sort of the brain's processing of phobias. It's a sort of clash of wills between the conscious brain and the subconscious. Logically, what should happen is you encounter a spider, nothing happens. The brain goes, oh, I encountered a spider, nothing happens, therefore the spiders are safe. Over time, you would learn that. It's just like Pavlov's dogs, that sort of conditioning. But what actually does happen is you encounter the thing, the brain says, that's that thing I'm scared of, and triggers the fight or flight response. So when you encounter a spider, there is a genuine, intense experience to be had with it. So when I encountered that spider, I had a terrible fear response. Obviously, spiders are something to be afraid of. It's sort of like circular logic, but it's a subconscious thing, so it just keeps happening. And every time it encounters it, it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. I was afraid of that because I experienced fear when I encountered it, so therefore I should be afraid of it. And I was afraid of that, and so on and so on and so on. People have this strange reverence for the brain in the mainstream. It's got some sort of aura around it. You're not allowed to criticise it. You can only be impressed by it. And as someone who works with the brain, I do not agree. I find it kind of ramshackle and ridiculous in many ways. Now, the brain isn't always rational, and these things can be very, very potent.
Okay. No, I'm okay.
Is that all right?
Yeah, whoa!
There you go.
Yeah, all right.
You got her. How's that?
Okay. That's a tarantula in my hand.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's all right?
Yeah, she's all right. She's okay. She's,
and you're doing it. There we go. Well done. Oh, little hooks on the ends of her feet.
Little hooks.
Helping holding on.
Just hooks.
Well done.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks,
that's
Dave.
brilliant.
Thank you. I really hoped I'd be able to do that, but kind of was sceptical and didn't think that was going to happen. But there you go. From not being able to look at a spider to holding a tarantula in one day. I have a moist brow.
Thanks for listening to The Y Factor. If you'd like to hear more episodes, there's a wide range of programmes on our website. Among them, The Pain of Loneliness, The Rise of the Robots, and The Science of Love and Lust. Visit bbcworldservice.com/wife.